So today we're going to talk about how to price jobs for 2025. It's an extremely important topic that most people get wrong. Welcome to the Jared Williams Show. My name is Jared Williams. This is Joel, my not so beautiful counterpart.
It's me.
We're going to talk about pricing jobs. But first, what's up, Joel?
What's up, Jared? How's it going?
I think my intros are getting better. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you've said pretty much the same thing in the exact same way in the same cadence the whole time. So they're probably getting better.
Thanks.
Hey, so I think we unlocked a secret on our drive from, where'd we come from? Ohio?
Ohio, yeah.
So I don't know about you, but that was probably the easiest 14-hour drive I've ever done in my life.
Was it?
Yeah. It was super easy.
Why?
Because we didn't eat any snacks. All we did was eat normal.
Yeah.
Like, because typically when I drive for really far, I'll just I won't really eat real food. I'll just eat like snacks and random stuff.
Yeah.
But what we did is, we picked up the power washing trucks and then we went and we got a big ass delicious steak dinner and then we drove for 5 hours.
Sorry, Dad, for his language.
Oh yeah, sorry, I apologize. Man, I gotta wash
My
myself.
father is not going to approve of this podcast.
Oh crap, that's it. I'm fired.
Yep.
We had some big butt steaks and they were delicious.
Yeah.
And then we drove for 5 hours.
For everybody who's listening, we flew to Ohio. If you don't know yet, we started a pressure washing company called Dude Wash. Our plan is to grow it to a $100 million a year company. If you want to follow the day-to-day, follow us on Instagram or Twitter, or not Twitter. I don't know. All the TikToks, YouTube shorts. Follow this video here. You'll see our shorts. We flew to Ohio to get these trucks. We bought these. They're basically a Isuzu trucks with a Chevy logo.
Yep.
They literally say Isuzu in the cab. It's kind of funny.
It's so funny.
I
I bet you if you picked off the Chevy thing, it'd say Isuzu underneath it.
Yeah, it's like an Isuzu box truck with a 16-foot box. We delivered to them to, what's the name of that place?
3R.
3R Sales and Service. The people there are awesome.
Yeah, they're super helpful. They're really excited that their biggest excitement is that they want to see businesses be successful more than obviously they're selling product, they're making rigs, they're doing their stuff.
Yeah.
But they're like, we just want to see guys go out and build cool businesses.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. The owner there had built a bunch of businesses and stuff. And
Yeah, cool guy.
yeah,
Cool people.
yeah, but they're all cool. They're all very
super
knowledgeable and helpful. And
Yeah.
So shout out to them.
Shout out to them.
The rigs look super good.
They were rad. The rigs look good. We picked them up. We got some training, and we drove them back here. And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was the easiest drive I've ever done. And I think it was just because each time we stopped, we'd intentionally, kind of by accident, be like, well, let's just eat real food. Take a little bit more time to drive into town, go get steak. So on the second day of driving, we had a breakfast, which was okay.
It was okay.
It was steak and eggs. But it was kind of.
It was like steak, but
it's roast beef.
Roast beef.
Yeah, it was really thin steak.
It was like a thick roast beef.
But I think it was from a local farm, which was kind of cool.
It tasted like it was.
Yeah. So I mean that was okay. But then for lunch we stopped and we had a real meal.
Yeah.
My wife asked me, how much cheesecake did you eat? Because we were having this conversation I don't eat that much sugar. She's like, how much cheesecake did you eat? I was like, well, maybe a slice with every meal.
Yeah.
So we'd get steak and cheesecake at every stop. But I was never really hungry during the trip. And it just made the driving really easy because I wasn't just eating crap.
I'm always hungry.
Always hungry.
So we did that, right? And then I came home, I worked out.
Oh, that's right.
And then I went in the sauna for 20 minutes. And then I got a cold plunge. And it's well, I bought the stupid thing. I spent a bunch of money on it. So I was so I cold plunged. And then I saunaed again for 20 minutes.
Did you do that because that's what you're supposed to do? Or is it just you're I'm cold, I'm going to go get back in the sauna?
Yeah, you can. Some people do that.
Yeah.
There's different protocols for different purposes that you're trying to achieve.
Sure.
I want to get my blood flowing because I have these. I have a vascular necrosis in my ankle.
Dang.
Which is basically you quit getting blood flow to your ankle, a certain bone in your ankle. It's my talus, and it's rotting from the inside out. And if I let it get so bad that the exterior of the bone caves in, my options are to try and do a bone transplant, which isn't very successful,
right? Or
fuse my whole ankle, which also sucks. So
it's making my ankle hurt just thinking about your ankle.
They did some surgery on it already. They drilled a bunch of holes in it to try to get the blood flow back to it. but it didn't work. Didn't really do anything. And so second steps would be surgery. Well, anyway, that's my purpose.
Yep.
So when you go hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold,
Mm.
it stimulates blood flow
Yep.
throughout your whole body.
Yep.
So that's why I did that.
Yeah. Okay. So you did that.
BTW.
You did that, and then you went to bed.
Did that, and then I went to bed, and granted, we spent the night in Louisville, Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
and then we drove from, I said Louisville in the reel, and I got a bunch of hate for it.
I know. I commented.
Did you?
I said I told him it was Louisville. I told him.
Dude, come on, you didn't say a word.
I did say a word.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure I said a word.
I think you did.
My memory's really good.
And then, but you didn't say a word when I was filming the audio for that video,
I forgot.
and you were standing right there.
Yeah, I wasn't listening.
Yeah,
I was thinking about other stuff.
Thanks.
Dude, I got
So
your back.
then we eat our weird breakfast.
Right.
We go to a restaurant for lunch, and for everybody listening, I eat at home. I've ate at home for probably 99.9% of my meals for the last year at least.
Yeah, me too.
And I've been on like a semi-strict carnivore-ish diet
Mm-hmm.
for, I don't know, maybe 6 months
Mm-hmm.
with non-carnivore spatters in between, but
Yeah,
still
occasional cheesecake.
still like healthy food, right?
Yep.
I woke up at 3 a.m. that morning and I barfed my guts out. And here's the thing. I don't know if it was the food that we ate
Yeah,
and like my
sure.
stomach just isn't used to it. And
Yeah.
so I went home and barfed it up.
Yeah.
Or if it was the hot, cold, sauna, cold plunge. I don't know.
My guess is it was just a combination of everything, of like driving, sitting around doing nothing, and
Yeah.
then eating. Like, and I mean, it's like the food that we ate was still like steak.
Yeah.
We denied the salads.
Yep.
You ate your vegetables, which was weird. And then,
I like broccoli.
yeah, okay, I guess that was broccoli.
Yeah.
So my guess it was just like the whole combination that made you randomly sick.
Maybe so that was day before yesterday, and then yesterday I felt fine.
Yeah.
Wasn't sick at all, and I ate normal like I
Mhm.
normally do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to go cold plunge sauna last night.
Mm-hmm.
I saunaed for 20 minutes,
Yeah.
and I had to get out because I felt sick.
Oh,
I felt sick to my stomach,
Interesting.
so I'm leaning towards it was the cold plunge sauna.
Yeah, that combo.
Yeah, just too
Yeah.
much. Like
Yeah.
20 minutes is too long. I need to keep it shorter or something.
Yeah, sure. Especially if you combo, or you got to work up to it or something.
Something.
Yeah, instead of just like
When it
getting
when it comes to heat, I'm a total weenie. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a total heat weenie.
This is Jared's sixth shirt today.
It's literally my third shirt today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wasn't that far
And
off.
it's what? 11:30 in the morning?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
11:30 in the morning. I'm on my third shirt. And right now I am hot.
Yeah, interesting.
It is hot in this room to me.
Hmm.
But hey, I'm a high temperature guy.
Yeah, so we got our pressure washing rigs, which is pretty cool. It's really funny seeing it in my driveway.
Yeah.
My neighbor, she came out. She's a funny lady. She came out and she's like, "You moving?" And I was like, "No, it's for a power washing company." And I could see in her face the annoyance, like, "Oh no, this is a big ass truck. Sorry, this is a big butt truck just
Yeah.
chilling in the like. I'm gonna have to look at this."
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, "Just wait till it's wrapped. It's gonna be even like more loud
annoying.
and obnoxious." Yeah. And my kids are my youngest son just loves vans.
Yeah.
In general.
He's
So-
awesome.
He's the whole time he's like, "I want to go sit in the truck. I want to sit in the box truck. Are we gonna drive the box truck?" It's constantly. It's pretty funny.
That's dope.
My son's like, "I think I can jump out my window and land on top of the roof of the box truck." I was like, "Yeah, you probably could, but
If you do that, I'll murder you.
yeah, exactly."
Yeah.
So,
Cool. Okay, let's get into it.
yeah, let's do it.
Talking about how to price jobs in 2025. And my idea of pricing jobs has shifted in, throughout all of 2024, basically.
Mm.
I've kind of started to think differently about my pricing.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the day, and this is pretty typical of a lot of home service companies, the way they used to price back in the day was they would take their expenses. So we're going to talk about margin pricing here. And I made the switch to margin pricing, but first you need to understand how I used to price and how a lot of people still price today.
Sure.
And then we'll talk about why I made the switch and why I think everybody moving into 2025 should price this new way. Okay? Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So most guys, when they start out, and we know this, like we've been watching I watched like 3 or 4 videos yesterday on how guys pressure washing are pricing their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this willy-nilly,
Yeah.
you know, guys call around, see what guys in your market are charging.
Mhm.
If they're charging, you know, 25 cents, you can probably charge 25 cents.
Right.
But you know, you're not as established, and so you might want to be cheaper.
Yeah.
And
So you can get the work kind of
so you
thing.
can get the work
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And the problem, like the problem they're doing is, number one, they're not considering how much it costs them to run their business and the
Mhm.
fact that they need to make a profit, right? So there's zero consideration to, okay, it costs me this much, so how much do I need to charge to make a profit?
Real quick, can I interject something really quick?
Yeah.
Within pressure washing specifically, there's such a range of business expenses. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the same within plumbing, but like for example, our rig is like $150,000.
Yeah.
But then you can get rigs that are $30,000 plus your vehicle.
Yep.
Or you can get rigs that are like $10,000 and under.
Yep.
So it's like, in my mind, it's like there's such a huge discrepancy of like what it's going to cost to run. Like, what it's going to
Yep.
cost to run our business is just going to be more because our expenses right off the bat are higher.
It's going to be kind of, but we're going to make that up in efficiency.
Yeah, sure. It's not like it's you're just having it to have it. Like, it has a benefit.
Our cost is going to be more, but we're going to provide a better product and we're going to charge more for it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So, and what I guess what I'm really getting at is we have to get rid of the idea that there's a going rate,
Sure.
right? Well, going rate is this. Well, what the hell does that mean in the first place?
Yeah. And who decided that?
And who
And
decided?
Why did they decide
Who
that?
decides what going rate is?
And when did they decide it?
And when did they decide what going rate
Yeah.
is? And why would you care what going rate is? If going rate is less than it costs you to run your business, then you're going to go out of business.
Yeah.
And that's the case most of the time. Whether you're a plumber, an electrician, a power washing company, house cleaning, any home service business, most home service businesses aren't profitable. They're running off super slim margins.
Yeah.
And the only reason they're even getting those super slim margins is because the owner is still working,
Mm-hmm.
producing revenue,
Mm.
and they do things as cheap as humanly possible.
Sure.
And for those two reasons, they're able to pull 2%, 3% net margins,
Mhm.
like actual pulling, you know, your profit at the end of the day
Yeah.
left over
Money that
out of
goes
the
in your bank
business,
account.
despite the fact that they're charging going rate.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah, sure.
And if going rate is based on that, and that is all we can charge, like if that's what you
Mhm.
believe, then don't go into business,
Yeah.
because you're going to struggle and work really hard to make 2 or 3% net margins,
Mhm.
and it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's definitely not worth it to like you and I. I can see how because people will do this, and I think just listening to people and talking to people, they
Mhm.
go into business specifically because they don't want to work for somebody else.
Uh-huh.
And like that's
Freedom.
the driving factor.
Yeah.
And then when you talk about like actually making money at the end of the day, it's almost like, well, if I can just make money, I don't have to work for somebody. And
Yeah.
that's like a win in my book.
I agree, but here's the problem is the lack of money ends up being the thing that ruins your freedom.
Yeah, 100%.
So you get back, you put yourself right back in the same exact spot that you were in.
Yep.
And but even worse.
Yep.
And you think to yourself, this is not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Word gets out that you're super cheap.
Mm-hmm.
People start recommending you because you're cheap. More cheap people start calling you
Right.
to provide your cheap service. And you're like, this is awesome. And you continue to do cheap work at extremely slim margins, and you can't grow your business, and there's never enough money, and you get stuck in this cycle of, I got to work more to make more.
Right.
And that's it.
And I think
And
so good.
so you lose your freedom because you're still trading your time for money.
Yeah.
Time for money.
Yeah.
That's it.
And it's like, I think you see this, and you probably see this in all branches of a home service, but like if you like look at just like the pressure washers in our area, they'll be
Yeah.
open Monday through Friday and typically half of Saturday.
Yeah.
And the reason is probably just because they just need the money. There isn't this
Yeah.
flexibility to go, I don't need to work Saturday.
I know they need the money because I called one of them to get a quote on my house, and it was $250. And I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
there's no way, dude. There's no
there's
way.
no way.
Yeah. Somebody commented on our Instagram channel that, and it was funny because he gave me a bunch of crap. He said something like, "This is a great business. I get $99 house washes all day long." And I commented, "I'm not getting out of bed for $99.
Yeah.
And he got a little angry, like, "Well, this is what's wrong with our country, freaking, you know, capitalist pigs."
Yeah.
Just
Makes sense.
raking people over the coals.
Hell yeah.
And it's a totally wrong idea of how everything works.
right.
But literally, I won't drive your house for $99. There's no way. Why? Because I know that it costs me more than $99 to drive to your house.
Yeah.
The marketing alone
Mm-hmm.
costs more than that to get me to your house.
Yep.
And even if it didn't, let's say I get cheaper leads than that. You add the gas.
Sure.
You add the person that's driving the truck. You add the truck costs. You add the time that's unbilled.
Mm-hmm.
$99 is not enough to get anybody to your house.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I'm not going to do a $99 house wash. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, no matter what trade you're looking at, no matter what home service you're looking at, you've got people out there charging
Yep. 100%.
ridiculously low prices and setting this going rate to just own a job and not make very much more money, but be way more stressed. And it's no way to run a business.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't, because the ego gets attached to it, where it's just like, well, I provide an affordable, like, price, and my ego and identity is attached to the guy who's affordable. Because when I go to church, I don't want to be the guy who's quote unquote ripping people off or super expensive, and all these like, there's all these like perceptions that people navigate through, which then just hurts everybody, because then it like puts this weird vibe. Even the comment of just like, this is what's wrong with this country. People, essentially, it's like so it's wrong that people are striving to make money with the thing that's built to make money.
Well, I wouldn't even look at it like that. Like, your goal as a business should be to make a healthy net profit, because that's what a business does. But it should be coupled with make a healthy net profit while providing a really good service to your customers.
Sure.
So healthy profit with really happy customers and overpaid employees.
Right.
Paid more, that you should be able to pay your employees more than anybody else.
Sure.
When you tell people that, okay, do you believe that would make a really good business? Healthy net profit, super happy customers, and employees that are paid better than anywhere else they could possibly work.
Right.
Everybody would agree that's a good thing.
Right.
What if I have to charge double what everybody else does in order to do that? Does that make it wrong? Absolutely not.
Sure.
And
well, and especially when it's like
if you look at the flip side, right?
Right.
Let's look at the flip side of that. The people who aren't willing to charge double than everybody else, they're out there trying to make a net profit, but they can't. And so they struggle. Everybody wants to do a good job for the customer.
Sure.
Pretty much. Like, if you're a slimy sleazeball and you're just trying to go out and screw people over, that's one thing. But 99.9% of the tradespeople, home service people that I meet, they are already doing a good job for the customer.
Yeah,
they're already trying to provide the highest level service possible. And what happens is they don't make enough money to provide the service they're offering. And so they get down to the end of the month and their net margins, or the end of the year, and their net margins are so slim that they can't afford to pay themselves well, to reinvest in their company. And it affects their life, their families' lives.
Sure.
They miss out on opportunity to affect everybody's lives around them. And then their employees struggle. They can't afford to hire good employees. And then because of that, their customer service struggles.
Right. Sure, of course.
And it's a terrible way to run a business. And if people understood, if they actually saw that on what goes on the back end of these businesses, I guarantee you they would think different about it. It's a lack of understanding.
Yeah, and then what about, because typically then the response to like, well, I'm going to charge double to accomplish all those things. Typically the response is like, well, that'd be great, but nobody's going to pay double for your service.
That's where people go wrong. That's something that you believe that isn't true.
Sure.
And it's been proven wrong time and time and time and time and time again.
Sure.
There's way to provide more value to your customer than what they're paying you for and get more money than the next guy. Look at, well, we have tons of examples of this in the home service industry. There's tons of companies charging more than their competition and doing way better.
Right.
Serving more customers, more happy customers, way more successful business, even though they charge double.
Right.
Can't argue that. Like, if they're ripping people off, how do they have happy customers?
Yeah, or if they're ripping people off, how do they maintain an incredibly high average review rating?
Yeah.
Like, and then I've heard people like, well, because they just buy those reviews.
They're not buying reviews, I promise you.
Yeah, because like the platforms don't. If Google sniffs that you're buying reviews, it'll just shut you down.
And that's too big of a risk.
It's a huge risk. It's such a stupid risk.
It's a dumb risk.
Yeah, because again, Google wants you to have a successful business because then people will see that and they'll use Google, and then you'll spend more money with them and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
They're not going to allow you to have a crappy business. That's why like getting your Google My Business profile verified is like difficult.
Yep.
Because they have to actually see that you're legit.
Yep. Okay. We also see people charging double in, like, look at Gucci handbags.
Yeah, or anything.
How does Gucci sell handbags for $1,600 and you can go down to the department store and buy one for $20? It's literally like,
it's like,
I don't even know what that X is. It's huge, right? It's almost 100X. How are they doing that? Are the customers happy about buying a Gucci bag? You bet your ass they are.
Yeah.
Are they ripping customers off by charging them double? If that person wants that handbag and they're offering it and it's this price, is that ripping them off?
Actually, the people buying the Gucci bags would probably be annoyed if they were cheaper. Because
Gucci would lose value.
Yeah, because then they would lose the status that's associated with like
Gucci.
Yeah, like I watched this stupid reel yesterday about like some like guy in New York interviewing these two guys with the most ridiculous clothes on.
Yep.
But they're like, "What are you wearing?" And like the thing would like bring up a snapshot of like the product and be like, "Oh, I'm wearing these Balenciaga cargo shorts. They look ridiculous, but they're like $395 cargo shorts. And this $1,500 like stupid hat."
Yeah.
Like if those things were cheaper, those guys wouldn't have been wearing them.
No.
And so it's just the idea that value isn't like your perception of your own value is not what the customer
Gucci
perceives.
And Balenciaga realized that they can create value with status.
Yeah.
And so they created value with status so that when you wear those clothes, the perceived value you're getting is status. And people are willing to pay a lot of money for that.
Incredible amounts of money.
Incredible amounts of money for that. And so the same question comes to us. Like, you literally can't go out and charge going rate. A lot of times you need to be double, triple, quadruple what going rate is.
Yeah, depending upon what your
so
geographical going rate is.
How do we become more valuable to the customer? That's what's going to allow you to charge higher prices. You have to create value to your customers. But that's not what we're talking about in this podcast. So we'll talk about that on another podcast. And we've talked about it in the past too. So go watch some of our other podcasts. But basically, you got to get rid of this idea that you're going to charge going rate. You have to get rid of this idea that there is a going rate.
Sure.
You have to get rid of the idea that well, you need to insert the idea that this business needs to be profitable and that I need to cover my expenses and still make a profit. There's a cost to running my business. I need to know what it is. And I need to charge enough to cover the cost and make a profit. Okay. So how do we do that? Right?
We wing it.
We do not wing it.
Oh.
Okay. That's what most of the videos that I watched would say.
I really thought I had that one.
Most guys wing it. It's sad. Don't wing it, please. It should be a math equation.
Yeah.
It should be a simple math equation. So the way that I used to price was I would take all of my business expenses. I would say, okay, 2024, my expenses are going to be this.
How did you know what your expenses were going to be?
well, you can look at your P&L, number one. If you have past P&L data,
Sure.
you can say, oh,
Well, sure.
these are my expenses.
But what if you're like just starting and you have no idea?
No idea. So you would go think of all the expenses you're going to have.
Sure.
You would say, okay, I'm going to have trucks. I'm going to have, you know, let's say 2025, I want to have 3 trucks on the road. Okay. So I'm going to have 3 truck payments. I'm going to have gas for 3 trucks. You're going to speculate what your gas is going to be for those 3 trucks. I'm going to have insurance on those 3 trucks. Well, insurance on my personal truck is this much. So insurance on 3 trucks should be roughly this much.
Yep.
And I know that I'm going to have to spend money on marketing, right? So whoa.
Okay, go on.
I'm going to spend some money on marketing. So I have a marketing budget that I'm going to set for 2025. And you're going to go through and list out all of your expenses. And that's something you should track to the gnat's ass for the rest of your life. As long as you're in business, you should know exactly what you're spending money on and how much money you're spending on it. Because you need to know how to price your company so that you cover all of those expenses. Okay?
And like the sooner you get into that habit when you don't have a ton of things to track, the easier it's going to be when you find yourself with a ton of things to track. Like if you wait like a couple years and then you're like, I'm going to figure out my expenses. It's going to be it's just going to be more tedious for you to sit down and do that. Than if you have a system from the beginning, like, oh, here's my spreadsheet with all my accounts. I would say even like my passwords and my expenses, what card they're associated with. Now I just add one thing to this each day and then I can see the numbers. Instead of like, I'm going to figure out all the vendors I've ever paid and like, oh, there's like 12 I don't even know about. Like, so the sooner you get on these things earlier, it just makes your life easier when you do hit different levels of scale.
Yes. Okay. Step 1 is know your expenses. So we're going to add up all of our expenses for a year. Bam. Now, the way that I used to price is I used to say, okay, if I have 3 guys in a truck, how many hours do I have available to bill out to the customer? Assuming each guy works 3 hours, that's 2,000 hours per guy. That's 6,000 hours for the year. So I have 6,000 hours available to bill. Now, it doesn't matter what service you're in, you're not going to bill out 100% of your time.
Right.
So we have to guess how much time we're actually going to bill out. So for my service company, when we went and tracked it, we were billing out like 50% of our time. What's crazy, I heard a statistic the other day that most service companies are billing out 38% of their time. Just no bueno.
Yeah.
The goal is to bill out as much of your time as possible. Okay. So you have to think about the service that you offer and how much of your time you're going to bill out. And if you don't know, you have to start with a guess.
Sure.
So, okay, I'm going to bill out 75% of my time. So if I had 6,000 hours, I'm going to bill out, that'd be 4,000? No. Why do we use complicated numbers?
Because
we're going to use 50%.
Okay.
I guess I could pull out my calculator.
No.
I suppose. Okay.
Should get you like a really big calculator so you can.
I should, so I can like show it on the screen. People probably can't see that, but there's 6,000 hours times 0.75, 4,500. I should have been able to do that in my head. That's how many hours we're actually going to bill out. Okay. So let's say your business expenses were $1 million, which for a plumbing company, a 3-man plumbing company, you're close to $1 million to run your company.
Gotcha.
By the time you include the plumbing labor, the taxes you're going to pay on that labor, all that stuff, you're really close. So what we would say is, okay, it cost me $1 million. I have 4,500 hours available to bill. In order to cover my costs, I would take the $1 million, divide it by 4,500 hours. That's $222.22.
Gotcha.
Bam. Don't know if you can see it. So that's how much it cost me to bill out 1 hour.
Yeah.
So if I charge that with 3 guys and $1 million worth of expenses, I would break even.
Yep, that's just your break even number right
if
there.
I build out 4,500 hours.
Yes.
Okay. Then you need to add profit to it. So let's say we want a 20% profit. What we do is we add 30% profit because we want to be able to discount 10% for our membership program. you guys should start a membership program. We're going to talk about that on the next podcast, BTW, so we won't get into that. But basically, let's assume we want to have a membership program where they get 10% off, and we want to still maintain a 20% net margin at the end of the day. You would divide this by the inverse of the margin that you want. Okay. So if you want to
divide it by 0.8,
if you want a 30% margin,
right?
Because then you're going to discount your membership depending on what software you're going to use. Some softwares you enter in your non-member price and it discounts it for members. Some softwares you enter in your member price and it increases it for non-members.
Yeah.
So you got to know which one you're doing.
Yep.
So let's assume we're going to use one that discounts it for your members, and we need to find out what it is for a non-member. We're gonna shoot for a 30% net margin, net profit, money on the bottom line,
right,
left in the bank account,
right.
Okay. We are going to divide this by 0.7.
Yeah, because that's the inverse
of 30%.
Yeah.
Okay. That gives us an hourly rate of $3.17. That's if you're billing out 75% of your time.
Yeah. Now, if you think about if you're just like the quote unquote average company who's billing out 38%, the numbers going to look slightly different.
When I first ran this for my plumbing company, we were billing out 55% of our time.
Yeah.
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 And we've got it up to 68% of our time over the course of the last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny. Okay. That's how I used to price. So then you would go out and you say, okay, my hourly rate is, what did I say? 334?
Sure.
Something
like that. That was like
something like
318 or something, but doesn't matter.
Is there memory on here?
Not with that calculator.
Dude, this thing's a piece of junk.
I know. That's why you gotta get an off-brand calculator.
Piece of crap. iPhone's a piece of crap.
Yep. Throw it away.
Dude, I switched to the smaller iPhone. So much. I love it.
I know. I can't wait to switch to the small. I got the big honker and I'm over it.
I'm over big phones.
Yeah.
This in my pocket is so much easier.
Can't wait.
Especially with no case.
I might even go no. I've never gone no case in my entire life.
You should not go no case.
Kind of want to try though.
It's only for cool people. Damn it. Okay.
One day, maybe. Jared, maybe one day.
Maybe one day I can join that club.
I can't wait. It'll be a cool kid club.
It's a real cool club.
Never had a broken screen in my life.
You're not a part of it.
Never had a broken screen.
Never?
Ever.
Well, because you have a case.
I know.
Yeah.
Since
you know how many
iPhone carrier day one.
You know how many broken screens I've had?
Thousands.
I get a new phone every like 6 months because I break the screen.
Yeah. I probably could have had my original phone and I still would have been fine. Like 10 years ago, same iPhone 3 or whatever.
Yeah. That'd have been dope. Okay, so you're going to go out and charge whatever, $3.18. Okay. So when you go to a job, you're going to say, how long is this going to take me? 3 hours. Okay. What's 318 times 3? Okay, that's $954 for the labor. And then you're going to look at your materials and you're going to mark up your materials, right?
Right.
Why do we got to mark up our materials?
Because we're not perfect.
Because we're not. What do you mean?
Well, we got to mark up our materials because we're not going to be exact on the materials that we use. But probably more importantly, we got to mark up our materials because we also want to make money on our materials.
Why? Isn't that criminal?
To make money on your materials?
Yeah.
I would say if I don't mark up my materials, I won't hit my margin at the bottom of my P&L.
You're right, but how come?
How come I wouldn't hit it?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Let me think about it. Because if I'm marking up my labor for my margin, that's part of it. But if I just go 1-to-1 on my materials, if I don't mark up my materials at all, if I just keep it exactly the same, obviously I'm going to lose money on them because I'm just not going to be perfect. I'm probably going to lose a lot of money on them.
You mean,
honestly?
What do you mean by not be perfect?
I'm not going to use the exact amount of materials I think. So if I go and I like if I'm like, I don't know, rebuilding a toilet or something. Maybe that's a bad example. Like something that's more complex that I'm not 100% sure. I go buy 2 of something. I only use 1 of it.
Let's say you're repiping a crawl space or something.
Sure. So then I'm definitely going to be off on certain things.
Yeah.
And over time, that will totally impact it. And I will lose money if I don't mark up the materials.
Correct. So I'll call that material efficiency.
Okay. Yeah. So my material efficiency is not going to be 100%.
No.
Yeah.
So, okay. So let's go into that and then we'll go into why we need to mark up materials. Yeah. So your material efficiency is part of why you need to mark up materials.
Yep.
It's 1/2 of the equation. So, and I've never looked at a company who had 100% material efficiency. I've looked at probably 100 now.
Yeah.
I've never seen one over 75%. And it's literally just how much you think you're billing out, like how much your CRM says you build out for materials, and then how much money you actually spent on materials. There's a discrepancy there.
Yeah. That seems like a very basic metric to have.
Right. And it's because we're not perfect. It's because we build these price book items, right? And we put in our how many hours we think the job is going to take and how many materials we think it's going to take.
Yeah, you're kind of guessing based upon experience.
Well, and you're going and using this pre-built task, and then your guys are going out in the field and they're running into slightly different situations. It's never a perfect one-to-one task match, right? And so we can measure our billable efficiency and fix the time frames, and we can measure our material efficiency, but it's really hard to know which tasks we're material efficient on. So if you measure your material efficiency just company-wide,
right?
Maybe you measure, if you have split departments, you can measure it by department.
Sure. What do you mean, like service and install or something?
Yeah, like if you had an install department or a service department, and you knew you had POs, so you had the material split on your P&L.
Sure.
Then you could figure out material efficiency for each department. But basically, they're going to go select a water heater task, and let's say that water heater task has 10 feet of pipe and 10 90s, and the water heater.
Yeah, just built in. Like, would those materials just be built in? Just like from the
has
get-go?
the cost built in for those materials.
Yep. That you
but
built
then
when you built your price
when
book.
they go to the helm, they need to use 20 feet of pipe and 15 90s and an extra ball valve, and maybe they had to put some temp water somewhere.
Or maybe the technician was at the supply house and he saw a good deal. Like, I can get a couple extra of these things while I'm here because it's just how I roll.
Yeah.
And then
he put them in his truck, and then they rolled around and got destroyed, and then he chucked them in the trash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Where are we accounting for those materials?
Yeah.
Right. So there's an inefficiency in your materials.
Yeah.
You're going to spend more than what you built for.
Yeah.
You need to figure out what that inefficiency is.
Okay. Yeah.
And we need to mark it up enough to cover that inefficiency.
Okay.
So let's say we had $100,000 that we spent, and we only billed out for 75,000.
Okay.
That'd be a 75% efficiency.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
So anytime we would basically say, okay, we have $100 material, we got to divide by 0.75 just to cover our inefficiency.
Divide by 0.75 because we're marking up. We're not trying to get the margin on it.
Right. Yeah. So if that'll make it a 1-to-1. That makes up for the inefficiency.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So if you have $100 material, $100 on the calculator, divide by 0.75, you got to charge $133.33 just to break even on your material.
Yeah, just to break even on the material.
Just to break even.
Okay, gotcha.
Over the course of a year.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, so that's one reason we mark up. What's the other reason?
The other reason is the one that, like, in my brain, I understand it just conceptually, like, well, because part of your business is reselling materials.
Right.
And so you should make money on the reselling of the materials. Is that correct? Like, is that the concept correct?
Kind of.
But I don't quite understand, like,
what happens if you don't make money on
that's
the
part
reselling?
I don't. So if you don't make money, so in the case where you don't make money, we're just doing what you just did, right? Where we're just marking up to cover the inefficiency.
Right, which nobody does. Nobody thinks about this.
Okay.
Not a single person.
Nobody thinks about the material efficiency and the reason why you mark it up the way that we described?
No.
Okay, so
nobody. And if you're listening to this podcast and you do this, you're gonna be super happy because you're actually gonna make money on materials.
Yeah.
Whereas before you didn't.
Okay, so with that markup, we've achieved markup of like 1-to-1, meaning that we're using the materials perfectly because we're marking them up because we know our material inefficiency.
Yep.
And so now we think to ourselves, if I don't do this, will it affect my bottom line? This is a question. Like, is that what I'm thinking?
If you don't mark it up further for profit?
Yeah. Like, if I don't add profit margin into the materials, will it affect my bottom line?
Yes.
How?
Think about it. If you did $1 million in labor, top line revenue, $1 million. Just think about your P&L statement. Okay.
Gotcha.
Top line revenue, $1 million. The only thing you sold is labor.
Yeah.
And
okay. No materials.
And you sold it at
labor.
$318 for this.
I just showed up to your house and like wiggled for a couple hours and then charged you and left.
Whatever. And because that's what we do. We show up when we wiggle.
Yeah.
So for this company, right, 318, you build it out, and we calculated it for 30% margin. If all we sold was labor, we'd hit 30% net.
Yeah.
We discounted for members, so we'd probably be at 20%.
Okay.
There'd be $200,000 sitting, bottom line, net profit.
Yeah.
Okay. After you covered all your expenses,
Yep.
because we accounted for all those in our hourly rate.
Yep.
Now, let's say next P&L, you sold $1 million in labor, and you sold $1 million in materials.
Okay. Okay.
And your labor, you're 20% profitable on, but your materials, you just break even.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
you don't want to mark them up. That's criminal.
But
that's ripping people off.
But we marked them up to accommodate our material inefficiency.
Yeah, let's say your material efficiency is 100%.
100%.
In
Yeah,
this
cool.
case. So now top line revenue is $2 million.
Okay.
Bottom line net profit stays at 200,000.
Right, because we sold, instead of just selling labor, we sold labors and materials.
Yep.
And in this example, we did $1 million in labor and $1 million in materials.
Yep.
But
And so revenue went up 1 million, but bottom line net profit didn't go up with revenue.
yeah, because it's a percentage.
So you go from a 20% net profit company down to a 10% net profit.
Just because you
company.
didn't mark up materials.
Just because you didn't mark up materials.
Even though you're 100% efficient on them.
Even though you're 100% efficient, it cut your net profit margins in half.
Yeah, gotcha.
Now, a lot of people, I've heard this before on social media, is, well, can't we just inflate our labor rates to make up for the lack of marking up materials so that we can still maintain 20% net at the bottom of the day? At the bottom line, end of day.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess
at bottom of day.
I guess theoretically you could do that.
Theoretically, you could, but number one, it'd be really difficult to get that gnat's ass because you have no idea how much materials you're going to buy in a year.
Oh, sure, because since you're using, you're like applying a metric to the wrong thing.
Yep.
Looking for the same result.
Yep. Also, think about this. If we did that and you sold lots of labor 1 month,
Oh, sure, because some
But
tasks
not-
are labor heavy, not material heavy.
but not very many materials, you'll have really good net margins.
Sure, on the labor
because-
months, yeah.
You could be like 30, 40% net margins.
Yeah.
But 1 month you could have really low labor, like sold less labor and sold a lot of materials because you had a lot of material heavy jobs, right?
Okay, gotcha.
With large material costs.
Yeah.
Your margins are going to be absolute garbage
Yeah,
because you didn't sell enough labor to overcome the lack of marking up materials.
yeah, sure. So then your bottom line is going to be a little squiggly,
Correct.
just with the kind of work that you end up doing.
Correct. So what we need to be doing is we need to say, okay, our labor needs to be marked up. The thing with this is we're like saying, okay, we're taking all of our expenses and we're when we sell labor, we're covering our expenses.
Yep.
Materials, we're just going to move profit to the bottom line. Okay.
Materials, we're going to move profit to
We're
the
going to
bottom
make
line.
sure we have enough profit so that we have 30% left over at the bottom line,
Yeah.
assuming all expenses of our business are going to get covered by labor.
Okay,
This is the problem with this style of pricing.
sure.
This is how I priced for years.
Well,
Made millions of dollars.
does it make sense before we go into that little chunk of the conversation to talk about how you marked up the materials to do something on the bottom line?
Yes, let's
Yeah.
finish that out.
Because we never finished out the full material markup.
Thank you. You finally did something useful.
Thank God. I've been actually holding out for this. Like, I've been kind of nervous about myself. Man, I got to say something that's helpful.
Crap. We're like 45 episodes in.
Yeah, like, come on, I need something to say that contributes. Come on. A joke. Think of a joke, Joel.
Okay. So we know if we have a $100 material and we're 75% efficient on it, we have to charge $133 for that material.
Real quick, does it make sense to talk about, because that's like, just listening to you talk about it, this is like, you're pretty good at pricing if you just did that right there with your materials because you understood your efficiency.
Dude.
How do most guys think of their materials?
They don't.
Oh,
They
what do you
just
mean
think that
don't?
it's an expense that comes into my business.
So they
and
just
The customer covers the materials. So I don't. That's it. And I've seen guys just mark them up 20%.
Yeah, I hear things like that, or maybe even 50%.
Yeah.
And that understanding is,
But you're not overcoming your material inefficiency.
yeah, because in this example, we marked up ours 75%.
No, we overcame a 75% inefficiency.
Yeah. Okay.
Here's the thing is most people, I have seen very few companies run at a 75% material efficiency. Service companies. We're talking like you're going in and you're providing a service with a lot of variables and materials.
Yeah, of
like
course.
for a plumbing company. Now, our pressure washing company, our material efficiency is probably going to be pretty freaking good
Yeah.
because there's like 3 or 4 materials, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're a cleaning company, your material efficiency is probably going to be pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
Because you go in and you have like some spray bottles of junk, right?
Yeah. And yeah, it's probably going to be easier to measure it.
Very
and
easy to figure out what you're spending on materials per job and adjust for it so that it's proper.
Yeah. And also within like a cleaning company, sometimes using more materials is actually detrimental. So you're almost incentivized to use as little material as possible. And you would think that in like a plumbing company, but operationally, guys don't actually think that way unless of course they have maybe a good commission structure in place.
Correct. So when we're thinking about like a plumbing company, there's thousands and thousands of different materials and thousands of different ways to put stuff in.
Yeah, of
and
course.
thousands and thousands of different things you're going to run into.
Right.
And so to accurately predict material costs per job is almost impossible.
Sure.
Okay. So we have to overcome that. I'll be honest, if you're in like plumbing, electrical, HVAC, your material efficiency is probably like 65%, 60% maybe. Okay. But you need to know what it is for your company.
Yeah, 100%.
If you don't know, just guess. Start at 75%. Assume.
And then watch your P&L and just
track it. And then track.
Yeah.
What did I actually bill out for materials? And this is why it's so important to be on a CRM where you can see this data.
Yeah, because then you don't have to. I don't even know how you do it otherwise.
You have to manually track it, like on a spreadsheet. Every single job. Okay, this many materials.
Holy moly!
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Just get a CRM.
Yeah.
So you can see what you build out for materials, and then go look at your P&L and see what you spent on materials.
Yeah, sure.
And then do the math on the discrepancy and figure out how efficient you are.
Yeah.
And then do this math right here. Okay, so we started with $100 material, 75% inefficiency.
Okay.
Now we have to charge $133.33 for
And this
it.
just makes us essentially break even on our material.
Break even.
Okay.
Now we want to go for a 30% net margin on our P&L.
Yep. So that when we sell material and labor, we still hold the desired margin.
Correct.
And we chose that margin because that's just the margin of this business model.
Because I want 20% minimum, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what are you willing to go into business for?
Yeah, 100%.
And it's like you look at like Coca-Cola and all these companies, and they're holding down 25% net margins. There's no reason you shouldn't do that with your plumbing business.
Yeah, because I could hear somebody being like, well, I'm comfortable with 10% net margins so that I feel better about not marking up materials because that seems unethical to me.
So here's the difference between 10% and 20%. Ready? Let's talk a $4 million business.
Okay.
You're running a plumbing company. It's a tough company to run. It's got a lot of risk to it. A lot of stuff could happen to knock you off your game, and you can lose money like that.
Yeah,
snap of a finger.
Like you could have a slow month.
Yeah. Or 3 slow months.
Oh, yeah.
Or 2 of your guys could quit, and you still have the expenses
you still have
of a $4 million business.
I know companies like that.
Yeah. It's risky. Okay. You have to offset that risk with profits. Now let's think about this. You have a $4 million company, $4 million in top line revenue.
Yep.
20% net margins is $800,000.
Okay.
So you have to spend $3.2 million in 1 year in order to make $800,000. That seems almost not worth it.
Yeah, that seems like if an investor came to me and is like, hey, give me $3.2 million right now, and next year you'll get the $3.2 million back, and
No.
you'll just get the 800 back.
Yes, you'll get you get your 3.2 million back.
Yeah, but it's not like in your bank account back.
Right.
It's like covered all.
You're spending it again.
It allowed you to be able to perhaps
spending
to another 800 next
every year. You're spending 3.2 million to
Yep.
produce 800,000
Yeah.
with great risk.
Yes.
Okay. That's like our minimum.
Mm.
And that almost hardly doesn't, like when you put it that way, it doesn't really seem worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, think about it with a 10% net margin. $4
Mhm.
million business, 10% net margin is $400,000.
Mm-hmm.
You have to spend $3.6 million to make 400,000.
Mm.
Does that seem worth it?
Not
No.
I mean,
With the risk that's involved,
it's a lot of money to spend.
you'd be better off going and getting a job, acquiring the skills to
Sure.
get a job that pays you $400,000 a year.
Yeah, because then all you're in it is just the skills
Risk is
that you
gone.
have. Yeah, it's just the risk is that the company that you're working for doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But that's not your responsibility.
No.
And hopefully you picked a good company to work for that paid you 400,000.
Right. And guess
Yeah.
what that company's doing? They're hitting 20, 25, 30% net margins.
Yeah, because they're going.
Because otherwise they couldn't afford to pay you that way.
Yeah, because they're going. Yeah, totally. Yeah, they couldn't. They'd be paying a much.
Think about a $4 million company making $400,000 a year and something goes wrong. Something goes awry. 400,000 will disappear in an instant.
Sure.
I had times in my business where I was losing $30,000 a month for 6 months in a row. That's a lot of dough
Mm-hmm.
gone. Now I'm at 5% net margins if I'm that company.
Yeah, and if you think about wanting to take care of your customers, take care of your guys, now suddenly it
Yeah.
makes it harder to take care. Your guys are the first thing that are going to go.
And so let me ask you this question now.
Mhm.
If you could have a $4 million company at 20% net margins
Mhm.
that had extremely happy customers and extremely well-paid guys
Mhm.
versus a $4 million company at 10% net margins with happy customers and semi-well-paid guys, which one would you pick?
I would pick the one with the better outcomes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
So don't look at it as, like, look at the outcome. What outcome do you want?
Yeah. And also,
I
I think
want
like,
to make more money. I want my customers to be happier.
yeah.
And I want my guys to be happy. Your goal should be to drive those net margins as high as humanly possible while still having happy customers and well-paid people.
Yeah.
That's my definition of a well-run business.
Yeah.
Okay, we better finish this math. Okay, we ended with 75% inefficiency.
Yep.
Now we want to drive 30% net to the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we have to do the same. We have to divide this by the inverse.
Sure.
So we're going to take this $133.33.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to divide by 0.7.
Mm-hmm.
Puts us at $190
Mm-hmm.
and 47.47619 cents. I'm going to call it $190.
Mm-hmm.
That's about 100% material markup.
Yeah, because in this case, our materials was $100, right?
Yep. So what we can do is now we're going to figure out what this margin was on this. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to do 100 divided by 190, I think. Let's see what happens. There you go. That is a 52% margin
Okay, on the materials.
on the materials. That's
Okay.
what we have to shoot for. So now
Mm.
we know whenever we have a material, our $100 material, we can divide by the inverse of the margin we want.
Mm.
So we divide by 0.48.
Mm-hmm.
That gets us back to, puts us at 208 roughly.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just 5.2. Let's try that. 100 divided by 0.52. That's how that works. $192.
Yeah.
Okay. Or you could just say 100% markup.
Yeah.
Be really close. So
Mm.
now we know for this company,
Mm-hmm.
based on its labor efficiency
Yep.
and its material efficiency,
Mm-hmm.
we have to charge $318 for labor,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to mark up materials. I would just go for 100%.
Yeah.
Real close to 100%.
Yep.
And if we sell enough labor and enough material, well, if we sell enough labor to cover our expenses, and we
Mhm.
mark up our materials, we will hit net margins.
Right, because both of the things that you're buying and reselling to the customer are marked up properly so that as you increase in revenue, your percentages stay the same when they finally fall to the bottom line.
Correct.
Because essentially the summation is if you don't do this, as you increase in revenue, and if your margins are off on material or labor, then they won't trickle down to the bottom line properly. And
Yep.
you'll lose money down there as revenue pushes.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. The problem with this model is exactly what we just showed is that we're assuming
Mm.
we have to assume we're going to sell enough labor to cover all of our business expenses, basically all of our overhead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I priced this way for years, made millions of dollars this way. It works, but I think there's a better way.
And really, you overcame, well, I wouldn't say overcame, you compensated for the material inefficiency, and because you weren't looking at material inefficiency for a while.
So it first started was I did exactly what we just said not to do, is compensated for material inefficiency
The labor.
with heavy labor.
And then sort of almost a quasi-arbitrary, well, we just mark up 120%, because I think you were watching your P&L. Of course, correct me if I'm wrong.
What is 120% markup in margin? How much margin is that?
I have no idea.
It's 54.5%, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Guess what my material inefficiency was?
What was that?
55%. So I was losing 0.5% on my materials.
Yeah.
Year over year over year.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at this and going, where is this money going?
Yeah, because you're like, I'm charging enough per hour to cover the cost of my business.
Yep.
I'm marking up materials seemingly enough.
Yep. And the only thing I knew to do was to raise labor rates.
Yeah, sure.
To make up for it.
Yeah.
I didn't know where the money was going.
Yeah.
So we raised labor rates and it got us through.
Mm-hmm.
And then I finally discovered, oh, I'm just not marking up materials enough.
Yeah.
Oh, we're actually just inefficient in materials.
Yeah.
So looking at this thing that we just laid out,
Mm-hmm.
no matter which way you price, we're going to go in the second way to price, which I think is better.
Mm-hmm.
But the game needs to be, okay, now that I'm priced right, how do I drive these efficiencies?
Sure.
How do I drive labor efficiencies and material efficiencies so that I can become more efficient
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I can either drive more money to the bottom line or I can lower prices and increase conversion rates.
Sure.
And create more income at the same net profits.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the game you got to play.
Sure. So then,
most people don't get to the point where they know exactly how to price themselves and they can't play that game.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't know all the factors that can sort of dictate like what you can do with your prices.
Right.
Yeah. Instead of just being like, we have to be super expensive eternally, forever and always, and we'll always be like ungodly expensive. That's how the business works.
Yeah. Because our business costs are so high and we're so inefficient.
Well, and the risk is really high, which again is like, we talk about that for a lot. We've had thought in that way.
Yep. If you become more efficient, it's the same as driving costs down.
Yeah. Which is so cool because you actually don't have to drive costs down. You just become more efficient.
Right. And so there's only 4 ways to make more money. You can charge more.
Mm-hmm.
You can do more work.
Mm-hmm.
You can become more efficient,
or
you can lower costs.
Mm-hmm.
Most people can't lower costs.
Sure, because
you can't pay your guys less.
Yep.
You can't tell the supply company, I'm not paying you that much for this.
Yeah.
They're going to charge you what they're going to charge you. You maybe can negotiate some of that down, but
not in a real way.
It's usually minimal, right? You definitely can't pay your labor less.
Yeah.
That's not going to work out.
You can't like lay off your CSR and then do that job yourself or something.
No. Most people that have a hard time finding technicians is because they're paying them less than everybody else.
Yeah.
If you pay them more than everybody else and you give them better benefits and you give them more freedom at your company to go buy the tools and all the stuff that they want, you're going to get more guys that want to come work for you. Right?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Because it's going to be better than where they are leaving. You got to make it better for them. You got to provide them with something nicer. So you can't really pay them less. You really should be trying to pay them more.
Right.
But how do we do that and not have to increase how much we charge? Because that's the only other option. We can become efficient or we can charge more. Well, you have to become efficient.
Right.
So that's the game you have to play. And I think in 2025, it's going to be even more important. Like we can see 2024, economy slowed down, interest rates are up.
There's an election
looming. There's
all
election looming.
Weird vibes going around.
National debt's not going down. It doesn't matter who gets in, they're going to keep spending.
Yeah,
national debt's going to continue to go up.
Yeah, guys, just don't think just like if Trump gets in, like everything's going to be solved. Like it's still going to be a ton of money being spent, and it's going to be like
the fact of the matter is they have national debt to pay off. Inflation has to go up so they can collect more money.
Yeah.
Because it's basically a tax, right?
Yeah. When inflation
goes up, they make more money. and that's how they're paying for their national debt.
Mm-hmm.
Until we figure out how to get rid of our national debt, that ain't going away.
Right.
So I think that our customers are becoming more price savvy than we think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I pitched this to my coaching group yesterday. I said, I'm just going to ask you the question, actually. Like,
Yeah, sure.
is price the only factor that our customers are thinking about when they're hiring us to perform a service at their home? This is the only thing they're thinking about. In general, all of our customers. In one group.
In
right?
one group? I mean, I would say yes.
No. Definitely not. What if you come to your house and you roll up in a junky van with your pants down, your butt crack hanging out, and you're cursing, and you showed up an hour late?
Sure.
You rescheduled him 10 times, and he comes in and he's super cheap. Are you going to be happy with the service? All of your customers? Let's say you have a pool of 500 customers.
Yeah,
they're all going to be happy with that?
Yeah, and I guess what I was thinking is like price is what they're thinking about, and then all the things that you do, like if you're the exact opposite of that company, then it justifies the price in the customer's brain.
So
it makes it acceptable.
Is price the only factor that makes their buying decision?
No, I would say it's probably the largest factor.
It's one factor. Let's just say that.
Okay, it's definitely one factor, 100%.
Yeah, it's one factor.
Yes.
So it is one factor. Okay. Now, can we, they care about all the other stuff, right?
Of course, yeah, whether they know it or not.
So can we increase income by getting better at providing value?
Yes.
And communicating that value to the customer?
Yes.
Will that help increase income?
Yeah, I think it'll drive down that price being a factor. It'll augment the price being a factor in some sense.
So when I think about how are we going to better serve the majority of our customers, we have to take both into account.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
We need to meet the customers where they're at. Price is part of the decision. If you could lower prices to $20 an hour, you'd have 100% conversion rates.
Yes, you would.
Right? You totally would. If you could add so much value that the price seemed irrelevant, even though it was super expensive, you could probably get to 100% conversion rates.
Yeah, if I was like, hey, every time I wash your house, you get an iPhone.
Every time I wash your house, or let's say every time I wash your house, you get, I don't know, 100 points. You get a $20 an hour raise at your job.
Yeah, like something so stupid that they're like, of course, obviously, like, oh, of course.
Then the amount that they're paying you for what they receive would seem ridiculous, right?
Yep.
Which kind of boils back down to price. So we need to play the game of adding as much value as possible at the cheapest price for the customer. That will make maximum conversions in our company.
Yeah.
Maximum conversions. If you run the math, I have a calculator, a spreadsheet that you can put in how many jobs you ran, what your conversion rate was, and what your average ticket is. And then there's a faux P&L, and you can see what happens. And when you can increase conversion rates to, even 5%, you can afford to lose quite a bit on your average ticket and still make more money on your P&L.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, it's not, I think there's always this temptation to view these things very like in the linear idea where there's like, okay, well, there's one choice and that's all we have.
Yep.
And that choice is going to vary, honestly, depending upon who you listen to.
Well, and it's, most guys aren't thinking about efficiencies and being efficient, driving costs down for the customer and still making good money.
Yeah.
What they get into is, okay, I have to be expensive to be in business, which is true. You do.
Yeah.
You need to be more expensive than the cheap guys. You can't be at going rate and be efficient enough to overcome it. Because it's impossible.
Going rate, we know that going rate is cheap only because the majority of people don't know what they're doing in business. Yeah. So they're just going to say, this is how we do it.
Yep.
And then the people who don't know what they're doing go and talk to the people who don't know what they're doing, and that's where you get a going rate.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there's always expensive companies who do know what they're doing, and they're just more expensive.
Yep. So, but what most people go to is, I need to get conversion rates up, so I need sales training.
Right.
I need my guys to sell more. And that's only part of it.
Yeah. That is a lever.
It's a lever you can pull, and it can be a very valuable lever to get your guys in the right mindset, to get them thinking about how they serve the customer properly. Those are good things to teach. But on the other half of it, there's a oftentimes more valuable thing in going, okay, well, let's just think about my prices.
Right.
If I go from $1,000 an hour to $500 an hour, I'm going to have more conversions.
Right.
Right. If we raise our prices too much, we're going to lose conversions.
Right.
And so you need to find that spot at which you have maximum conversions with maximum profit.
Right.
It's why Gucci sells handbags for $1,600, not $2,400.
Yep.
Could they sell them at $2,400? Yes. But they probably wouldn't sell as many and would affect their profit margins. And they know that. They test it. So should you.
Yeah.
And you have to track all the stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah, because if you don't track it, you can't just do an arbitrary, like, well, it felt like we did better, or the bank account seems to be bigger or smaller.
No, you need to track your margins, track your conversion rates, track your inefficiencies, track your hours sold, and then make data-driven decisions about your company based on what you find.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into what is wrong with the part we just described about this pricing method, right?
Sure. Which is essentially like, I would almost consider it like the classic hourly rate method.
Yeah.
Where you figure out what you need to charge for an hour and then you mark up your materials. There's like two separate ideas.
Yep.
The hour, your labor is really carrying the brunt of your business.
Yep. It's been taught for years.
Yep.
And you know, back in the day, material prices were way cheaper.
Sure.
They've gone up a lot.
Would you say that they were more consistent back in the day?
I don't know. They're fairly consistent.
Yeah.
There was a year there, I think it was during COVID, when material prices were like, they were skyrocketing.
Our buddy, Mr. Matt Banning, would let us know.
Yeah, they were skyrocketing
all the time.
Quick.
Sheet of plywood's up to like $55 or whatever. Yeah.
Guess what? It didn't come down a whole lot.
I know.
I bought a piece of 3/4. Actually, this piece right here.
Yeah.
3/4 inch birch plywood.
Yeah.
It was $98.
Yeah.
And it's like, used to be like $58 would get you like the 8 ply.
Yeah.
This is like 5 plies.
Yeah.
For $98.
Yeah.
You can't even get 8 ply at Home Depot anymore.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
They don't even
like,
stock it.
Sell that 'cause
Nobody will buy
buys
it.
this. Yeah.
Exactly. Which is a great point. If you have to price it so high that nobody wants to buy it, you should just sell something else. Okay. Let's see. In that scenario, we're assuming, right, that we're going to sell enough labor to cover all of our expenses.
We're hoping, actually.
We're hoping.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not assuming. We're hoping.
So now we have to track and make sure that we're selling enough hours in our business, which is it's good to track that, right? But you being profitable is dependent on selling enough labor. And what happens if you don't?
Then you're not profitable.
You don't hit margin.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're not making money on your materials.
So to me, the better way to price, and what we switched to in my plumbing business before we sold it, was what's called margin pricing. Okay. So we know, looking at past historical data, that we want to hit, number one, we want to hit 20% net margin on our bottom line.
And
that's our goal.
And again, you just decide that because you go, just like a conversation we had before, like this actually makes it closer to worth it to do this business thing.
Well, plus you need to build a business that's sellable.
Of course.
Because you don't know what you're going to do to that thing.
Yep.
If you're running at 10% net margins, it'll be sellable, but not very sellable.
Yeah.
You're going to get way less money for it.
Yeah.
If you're hitting 20% net margins in a plumbing and HVAC business, that's unheard of.
Yeah.
Right? You'll get a good amount of money for that business.
And it's kind of cool because even with that angle, then you can see what the marketplace values your business at.
Right.
Not like the consumer market, but the
Right.
purchasing marketplace.
Right.
And so then you can say, okay, well, if these guys, these people who are, whether you want to sell it or not, right?
Yeah.
But if you know that people out there are looking to buy these businesses at 20% margin and that's a thumbs up, that tells you that it's possible.
Yeah.
And if it tells you that it's possible, then why not shoot for it?
When you're building your business, you're not just building income via a paycheck from your business or net profit from your business. You are building net worth through equity.
Yeah, sure.
And equity is what your business is worth.
Right.
So when you have a business with higher net margins, your net worth goes up because that business that you own is worth more.
Right.
So you're increasing your net worth. Okay. It's going to be easier to go do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, sure.
You're going to get It's going to be easier to get bank loans. It's going to
Mhm.
be easier to expand your business.
Mhm.
Everything's going to be easier because your business is profitable.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like all those things that you just talked about, like bank loans, and they're looking at you and they're going, "Is this guy a trustworthy person
They're looking
to
at
give money to?"
And if you own a business, they're looking at your business and
Yeah.
going, does this thing produce enough cash
Mm-hmm.
to give this guy a loan
Mm-hmm.
for the amount of money that he wants? And if you're operating at 2, 3, 4% net margins, they're going to look at you and go, I don't think so.
Yeah, and like they're looking at it, and I would say they're looking at it, they're just like, this guy just isn't competent. So why would we give him
Exactly.
more money to go and waste?
Exactly.
That's what they're thinking.
Yeah. This
So-
guy can't make money with what he's got.
Mm-hmm.
How's he going to make money with what he doesn't have?
And
We
they're
give
looking at
more.
Yeah, and they're looking at it, they're going, well, based upon other people in this industry business style, they're doing it, and this guy can't. So obviously, it's a competence thing.
Right.
That's nothing. They're not going to look at it and be like, well, the guy
Well-
said market's difficult or this, that. They're not going to have any sympathy for any of that. It's just raw competence.
Yep. It's even just like if he goes and spends more money and he only gets a 3% return on it,
Sure, of course.
right? A 5% return,
Mm-hmm.
the risk is higher
Yep.
than if he gets 20% return on it.
Yep.
20% returns, the risk goes down. That's all they're looking at.
Hmm.
It's risk.
It's kind of like, maybe this is like a too blunt or too like narrow, but it's kind of like banks will give you money if you're smart, and a couple of things indicate your intelligence with your money, which would be like your personal credit score, because that says you didn't make stupid choices, and then the profit in your business, because that says you didn't make stupid choices and you bringing money. So the bank says, oh, this guy seems smart, let's give him more money.
Yeah.
Because he'll do something with it.
Because the risk is low.
Yeah, if I have a 500 credit score and I have 0% profit in my business, the bank's gonna be like, dude, we're not giving this guy anything.
No.
This is like,
Nope.
This is like giving that homeless guy $20 and hoping that he doesn't go do something foolish with it.
Yep.
Maybe, you know.
Exactly. Okay. So how do we get rid of this problem of having to sell enough of our time? Well, rather than making up for our overhead all in our labor, let's make up for it in labor and materials, right? So that no matter what we sell, we make enough money on it to cover overhead and net profit, right? Because when we're looking at our P&L, and this is why we have on our P&L, we have gross margin, so that we know that we're marking our materials and labor up enough to hit gross margin, which allows us to cover overhead and hit net margin. Okay.
And so, yeah, okay. So how do we know what gross margin we're looking for?
It's going to be different for every single business. There
Okay.
are norms, right?
Sure.
For for businesses.
Mhm.
And so if you like go look at your P&L, like if you arbitrarily price yourself for 1 month and you just say, okay, I want to hit 60% gross margin.
Okay.
And so you go into business and
Why would I go gross margin and not net? Why wouldn't I start with net? Like I want to hit
so
X net
because we're
margin.
talking about gross right here.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So, or start with the pricing model that we talked about beforehand. Once you get some P&L data, switch over to the pricing model we're talking about now.
How much P&L data would you recommend?
In the beginning, you need to get to the point where you're busy, right?
Okay,
so that
so
you
it's
know
like a
that
true
it's
sense.
so that you know that it's not, or be really diligent about if you're the one working in the business, you're only getting paid the hours you're working.
Sure, you're not getting an owner, like an inflated owner pay.
Right.
Yeah.
You can get
Or maybe even deflated.
you can get an inflated owner pay, but you need to split it up between, okay, my hourly pay was this, and
Yeah.
that goes up in the cogs on my P&L.
Yeah, sure.
And my owner draw was this, and that can go in overhead.
Yeah, it's just so that your P&L percentages are actually true.
Correct.
Yeah, because true data, if you don't have true data, then
You
it
got
doesn't
nothing to
matter.
look at.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's assume you've been in business for a little bit, charging willy-nilly. You go pull some P&Ls and you say, okay, on average, last 12 months, my gross margin was 50% and I made 0% net margin. So how do you get to 20% net margin?
Increasing your gross margin?
You increase your gross margin 20%.
Yeah,
And
because
all of a sudden, that goes down to the bottom line. So how do we...
because
Right?
given that your overhead stays the same.
Right.
Yeah.
So your gross margin didn't leave you with enough money to cover your overhead
Gotcha.
and still have net margin left over. So we have to increase gross margin.
Gotcha. Okay.
And this is the metric that every business owner needs to be thinking about.
Mm.
How do I increase gross margin? How do I increase gross margin?
Mm.
How do I increase gross margin?
Mhm.
The overhead, you can set your overhead costs, right?
Yeah, they're pretty predictable.
How do I increase gross margin?
Actually, you have control of your overhead too, right?
You have
there
control
any-
of your overhead.
Yeah, because it's all just it's not.
It's expenses
Yep.
and it's people.
Yeah. So you can
And
choose
if you
to lose
keep it-
expenses and
If
lose
you keep
people.
it to what's necessary
Mm.
and no more,
No Bugattis.
no fat in
Mm.
your overhead.
That's good for you though.
Most people get fat in their overhead. This is in the trades, especially. They skimp on like new vehicles and nice tools. So they lower their overhead in those senses. But then they go and they hire extra people, extra office people.
Usually extra office people.
And their office is just so inefficient. And they got tons of people handling the same thing over and over again.
Or handling unnecessary things.
Handling unnecessary things you can automate that software can take care of. It's ridiculous.
If I hear any business I don't have enough experience with like true revenue numbers, but anybody under 5 million who has an office manager and they're doing just service, they're not doing any other styles of commercial or new construction, I'm already like, okay, that doesn't make sense to me.
I got a plumbing manager, an HVAC manager, an office manager,
oh gosh, I'm already
and I got a bookkeeper /
in-house
whatever. And
or like my brother's a marketer, he's in-house.
And I've got an in-house marketer, and I've got 3 CSRs.
Oh gosh.
You got 8 people in the office.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. You don't need it.
Yeah, especially if you're under 5 million.
Yeah.
Like-
So we did last 365, last time I looked at my business, the last day that we owned it.
Mm-hmm.
It was 5.6 million in revenue with 8 people out in the field, 3 people in the office.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. At 28% net margins
Mm-hmm.
for last 365.
Yeah.
That's it. Simple. Very minimal.
Yeah.
Super streamlined.
Mm-hmm.
Very specific.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't involved. That's it.
What do you think about this statement? I think that business owners bring people into the office because they don't know how to do a thing, and so they delegate to an expert who knows how to do the thing.
Yeah. A lot of times.
Like, I don't know how to do my paperwork, so I hired somebody to help me with my paperwork.
Yeah, I would say learn how to do your paperwork.
Yeah.
I think you should learn how to do everything in your business.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, because if you don't, then how do you know? Like, how do you know when you hire that person they're actually going to be doing something meaningful?
Yeah, but obviously that's to an extent.
Of course, you're
Right.
not supposed to go and like be like. I don't think you need to be the CSR for 6 months before you hire a CSR.
No, I'd be a terrible CSR. Right?
Yeah.
And the best thing I ever did was hire somebody to do it and say, here, do this.
Yeah.
Your wife. And she
Yeah.
did it, and she did it well.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, I still don't know how to be a good CSR.
Mm-hmm.
But I just hire people that are good at it.
Yeah.
So there's things that are needed. Like what you need to do is look at what your people are doing in a day and saying, are we using their time effectively and efficiently,
Yeah.
helping to drive profit and customer satisfaction?
Yeah.
Well, really drive revenue and customer satisfaction.
Yep.
I'll worry about the profit, right?
Right.
And then your managers can worry about the margin, the gross
Right.
margin.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
That's really what you need to be doing. Like, can we do this with less people?
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
Can we do this with better systems, more efficiently, better software? Can
Mhm.
we automate some of this? Those are the
Mhm.
questions you have to ask.
Mhm.
Can we just not do this
Yeah.
and still get the same outcome?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can we outsource this to somebody else, like a bookkeeper?
Yeah.
We spend like $1,500 a month in bookkeeping fees.
Mm-hmm.
I can't hire somebody for that.
Yeah.
If I did, it would cost me more for bookkeeping.
Yep.
So let's outsource it. It's
Yep.
cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Keep overhead costs down.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, prospectors' overhead is 24% of the company.
Mm.
So, and that's what you need to know. Okay, so back to this margin pricing thing. Okay, we can go look at past P&L data, and we can say, okay, our gross margin at 50% creates 0% on the bottom line.
Okay,
so we need to raise gross margin, which brings us back to our question. How do we raise gross margin?
Mm.
Any ideas?
Well, we can do more sales.
Do more sales,
We can become more efficient.
become more efficient.
We can cut costs,
We can cut costs.
and we can
charge more.
Charge more, yeah.
Nice. Okay. So if you're looking at this P&L and you're 50% gross margin and you have 0 on the bottom line, your best bet is to say, okay, I'm going to price my stuff to hit 70% gross margin.
Yeah, so effectively pulling that price lever first.
Yeah. So when you're looking at, that's always the one you pull first. You pull price lever first because most people are underpriced.
Right.
And then you pull, what were they? More expensive.
More sales.
More
efficient.
sales. So then we got like, not necessarily more sales, just more work.
Yeah, more
like
work.
Do more work.
Yeah, sure.
So you pull the
increase volume.
Yep, there you go. I like that.
Yeah.
So you pull the price, like increase prices, because most people are underpriced. Then you pull the increased volume. Okay. Then you pull the efficiency model, right?
Yep.
What was the fourth one?
The fourth one was reduce costs.
Reduce costs. That's when you're pulling the whole time.
Yeah, you're always looking for costs that you can reduce.
Yep.
Yeah.
Overhead costs are easy.
You're always looking
Keep
for
that
things
cost
that
low.
you may have accidentally acquired that you actually don't need.
Yeah.
Which happens all the time. You're experimenting. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay
Get
to
rid of
like
it.
try that silly AI software for a moment and then go, well, that was stupid. And then cut it.
And
you
then
know?
cut it.
It's not okay to just hold something and then keep it forever if it's not useful to you.
And it's only $199, but you got 10 of those things. There goes a bunch of money you're spending every month.
I would say if you look in your personal life and you have 7 different streaming subscriptions that you never use, I would say you are in danger of doing the exact same thing in your business.
Probably.
So just like keep an eye on that.
Probably. Okay. So what we're going to do with margin pricing, we're going to look at our gross margin. We're going to determine what gross margin we need in our business to hit the desired net margin.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're going to take the things that we buy and resell. So the things that are in your COGS. So in a service business, which is what we talk about on this podcast, you have labor, you have taxes on that labor, you have benefits on that labor, you have commission on that labor, and then you have materials, then you have subcontractors, and then some people like to put finance fees up there, okay? So you're going to take all of those things, and whenever you sell those to the customer, you're going to mark them up enough to hit the desired gross margin on your P&L.
Right.
So let's take Prospector, for example, because we'll walk you through like real life how to do this. So Prospector, if we hit 50% gross margin on our P&L, 55% actually, 55% gross margin on our P&L, our overhead is like 24 point something. I'm going to say 25.
Yep.
That leaves us with 30% net bottom line. So
Right,
my goal was to hit 55% gross margin on my P&L. So whenever I'm pricing a job and I know it's this much labor and this much materials, all we have to do is mark up the labor cost and the material cost to 55%. And then we know we'll hit 30%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Because then they'll both carry down as you scale in volume.
Correct. And it's extremely similar to how we did the material cost in this last method, right?
Yeah.
There's still efficiencies
Of course.
involved
Of course.
in labor and materials. So labor, this is how we do it. For us, we paid our guys $55 an hour. We take 55, okay? For the watchers, 55 on the calculator. For the listeners, I'm sorry you can't see it.
Imagine a calculator.
And what we're going to do is we're going to add benefits and taxes.
Is that loaded labor?
Kind
Like when
of.
people say loaded labor, is that what they mean?
Loaded labor is, I hate that term. I really do.
Okay.
Because it's like, okay, well, what are you including in there?
Oh, sure. So people say it and they just assume that we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah, but nobody does.
Yeah, because everybody's like, well, I put desk expenses because that's labor.
And
like,
somebody says my gross margin's 80%. It's like, well, what do you have in your COGS?
what do you have? Because here's the thing, guys.
They don't
like,
have any labor in their COGS or employer taxes in their COGS. Or
And man, this is just life in general. Like when you're talking to people, don't assume that you're defining everything the same.
Nope.
Like that's why when you like listen to any like fancy debate people, they're going to start out with defining terms so that they understand they're not talking past each other.
Exactly. Okay. So we pay our guys $55 an hour. We're going to add benefits and employer taxes. Okay. Health insurance, 401k, employer taxes.
Yeah, everything that's just attached to that cog.
Yes. Super quick cheat code to do that. Multiply by 1.4.
Is that just because like that's just sort of the general average?
Yes.
Okay.
It works out very well. It's
Mhm.
surprisingly how accurate that is. So take 55 times 1.4.
Mhm.
That takes your cost per employee per hour to $77 an hour. That's how much that person is costing you if you're paying them 55 on their paycheck.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay? It's really 77.
Mhm.
Here's what's crazy. There's people out there still charging like $75 an hour.
I know.
It's craziness. Okay. Now, $77 an hour. Now we need to overcome our inefficiency.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So let's say your company bills out 70% of their time. Let's say 68, because that's what Prospector was last I checked.
Okay.
So we would divide by 0.68. Divide by your efficiency. Puts us at $113.23.
And we don't divide. How come we don't divide by the inverse?
Because you're not trying to get that.
We're not trying to get, because if we divide by the inverse, that's the margin we're looking for on the number that we're doing. Okay.
Yeah. We're just trying to overcome that inefficiency.
Okay. So then we just
And
divide
still
by
break
the
even.
inefficiency that we're trying to overcome.
Yep.
Okay.
So that puts us at $113.24, we'll call it. It's
Okay.
0.2352 something.
Okay,
There you
so-
are on the calculator.
So
okay?
that's our labor. And now we've just
That's
overcame our
This is how much our labor costs us
Yeah.
per hour that we bill out.
overcoming for inefficiency
Yes.
of just time. They're
So
not
when-
going to bill out 100%.
So this is what I would consider my
Ah.
labor burden rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this would be
So-
your loaded labor for Jared Williams.
Whatever. That term is
Not even
dead.
gonna touch
that
it.
term is dead to me.
Okay, sorry.
So when in Service Titan, you can
Mm-hmm.
enter in your labor burden rate. This is
Mhm.
what I would enter in because this is
Mhm.
truly what it costs you.
Okay.
And that way, when you go look at data per job,
Yeah,
Service
sure.
Titan will tell you what margin you hit on the job.
How many guys do you think just put in? I pay my guys $40 per hour, and they just
Yeah, most
Click it
people
in there.
don't know what to put in here.
Mm.
This is what you put in there.
Okay.
Right here.
because it checks the boxes.
Checks the
You're not
boxes.
leaving any little columns
Here's the thing, though.
untouched.
You have to know your labor efficiency.
Yeah, sure.
Labor efficiency right there. When we're talking labor efficiency, it's okay. My guys, I'm going to assume they're working 2,000 hours a year.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they work more, well, we're actually going to adjust this again. I'll tell you
Mhm.
why. So
Mm-hmm.
actually, let's do that. Me personally, I know that in my business, my guys, a lot of the times are going to work $50 an hour or 50 hours a week.
Yeah.
Because it just happens, right?
Yep. Just put in some OT.
But when I figure all of my pricing and everything, I want to figure it on a 2,000 hour year, a 40-hour work week. And so I need to adjust for that extra overtime in my pricing.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to times this by 40, and then I'm going to divide. Actually, I'm going to times it by 50. 113 times 50,
Because that's the hours worked per week.
and then I'm going to divide by 40. And that gives me my true burden rate, labor burden rate, adjusted for overtime. Okay? So it's really $141 an hour.
Yeah.
There's guys out there charging $140 an hour wondering why they're not making money.
Yeah.
It's because it's costing you that to have a guy.
Yeah.
If you're paying them $55 an hour.
Yeah.
Okay. So true labor burden rate, $141.25. That's what Prospector's labor burden rate was. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, if the way you come up with that efficiency is okay, out of a 2,000, everything needs to be based off a 2,000 hour work year.
Mhm.
Okay. That's why we adjusted it.
Mhm.
Now, if they're working 2,000, and the reason I do this is because when I'm looking at my efficiency, my labor efficiency,
Mhm.
I don't want to have to go back and add up how many hours everybody actually worked. Okay. I'm just going to assume they worked 2,000.
Sure.
Now I know they're going to work more, so we just adjusted for that.
Right.
Now, when I go pull my labor rates, I can go pull it for a month, and I can assume that everybody just worked 40 hours a week.
Labor rates, is that going to be
Not labor
hours?
rates, hours sold.
Okay, hours
right?
sold. Got it.
So I'm going to go into my CRM, and I'm going to say, how many guys do I have?
Mhm.
Okay, let's say I got 3 guys.
Mhm.
Well, for Prospector, let's do that. We had 8 guys, and they all worked 160 hours. We'll do the math. Remember 141.25.
141.25.
Don't just sit there and repeat it to yourself, okay? Please. So let's say we got 8 guys, and there were 4 weeks and everybody worked 40 hours, 160 hours per guy, they worked 1,280 hours between all those guys. Now, if I sold, I just did this yesterday, 912 hours, I would do 912 divided by, what did I say? 1,000 something.
1280.
1,1280. Don't know if that's right, but we'll use it. That's a 71.25% efficiency. So when I go figure this, I'm going to figure my hourly rate at 71.25 efficiency.
Sure.
Okay. You're going to track that number over time. And as you do things in your business to become more efficient and increase that efficiency, you're going to then track what your minimum is that you can charge the customer and be profitable with. And then you're going to drop prices to that. And then you're going to watch your conversion rates. And if they go up, you made a good move.
Yeah.
If they stay stagnant, raise your prices back up.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Yeah. That's the game you're going to play. Okay? So that you find the optimum price with maximum conversions.
Yeah. Because then what happens
la-di-da.
is then your top line numbers will get bigger. You'll gain more volume because you'll just sell more work. But then you're still going to hold down whatever margin that you're shooting for.
Yeah, you're getting those calls in your business. You're running all those jobs. If we could just convert more of them and overcome lowering prices by converting more, we make more money.
Yeah.
It's simple math.
And it's not like, well, let's get the work and lower prices just arbitrarily to get the work, because then you're going to sacrifice margin when you do it that way.
Correct.
When you just willy-nilly do stuff, you typically lose money.
Yeah, correct. Has to be math-based, data-based. Okay. So that's how we're going to come up with our efficiency. Okay. We're going to track that over time. That's the number we're going to use for our thing. Okay. What was our hourly rate?
141.25.
Dude, you're good.
I've been saying it over and over in my head.
Have you really? That's impressive.
That's impressive. I remembered a number for like 2 minutes.
Dude, I couldn't do it. There's no way.
Yeah.
My memory's terrible. Okay. Like, where were we at? What were we doing? What's this number mean?
I was about to drink some coffee.
Okay. This is my loaded labor rate. Okay. Including overtime, efficiency.
Yep.
Benefits, the whole 9 yards. Okay. Now, all I need to do is hit margin on this.
Sure. Gross margin.
Yes, gross margin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And I know that I want to hit, at Prospector was a 55% gross margin. I knew if we could just hit 55% gross margin, then we will have 30% net left over at the end of the day. So I take this number and I divide by the inverse.
Yep, because now we're going for the margin that we're going for.
So if I want to hit 55% gross margin,
We divide by
I
the
divide
inverse.
by 0.45, and my new labor rate is $313.89. I would just make that $314. So I know if I charge $314 for my labor, I'm marking up my labor enough to hit gross margin on my P&L.
Cool. So then labor is
Set.
We're good.
$313.
Yep.
That's
Boom.
half of what I used to charge.
Oh, wait. Oh, that's right. Because before,
We were
Okay.
covering all of those overhead expenses with our labor.
yeah, we weren't
So
even
we
letting
had-
materials do any of the heavy lifting.
Right.
Okay.
Which is dumb. Okay.
Sure. It is dumb.
Okay. So with our materials, it's the same thing.
Yep.
We track material efficiency.
Okay.
And we say, okay, I have $100 material. Let's say my material efficiency is 70% on service work. So we divide by 0.7. I have to charge $142.85 for that. And now I want to hit 55% gross margin on my P&L. I divide by the inverse, divide by 0.45. I now have to charge $317 for that $100 material.
Gotcha.
So 100 divided by, say 314. See, I can't remember nothing, dude.
For what?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
314 was how much we needed to charge for the $100 material.
Yeah.
To hit 55% gross margin. So that's 0.3184. So I need to take my materials and divide by 0.32. So $100 material divided by 0.32, $312.50. So that is a 68% margin
On your materials.
on your materials.
Okay,
This is what I need to hit.
To hit 55% gross margin on your P&L.
Yep.
Okay.
So that hits 55 margin on my P&L plus the extras for my inefficiency in material.
Gotcha.
So now I know when I go price my jobs, it's my labor's $314.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have $100 material, I have to hit 68% margin on it. So I divide by the inverse and I get my margin. Divide by 0.32.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, gotcha.
And that's how I'm going to price my jobs.
Yeah, and so then every job just goes through that equation. Well, they don't need to go through the labor equation because it's already done. It's like labor's
Right.
solid. And then
314,
materials.
material costs divided
Yeah.
by 0.32.
Yeah, so then it's like, all right, well, 5 hours of labor, 5 times, 314 for your labor hours.
Yep.
And then the materials are X amount.
It's cost.
Yeah, it's a cost.
Yep.
And then that's marked up.
It's the same thing. You're taking labor cost times how much you
Mhm.
have, and then you're taking material cost divided by desired margin.
Yeah, gotcha.
Inverse of desired margin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's how you're going to price your jobs.
Okay, gotcha.
What this is going to do for you is it doesn't matter what you sell. So like in the
Right.
last pricing model,
Sure.
we sold a lot of labor, we were super profitable.
Right.
We sold a
Yeah,
lot
sure.
of materials and low labor, profits disappeared.
Yeah.
And we're going, where did all the money go?
Yeah.
In this model, we've got, doesn't matter if we sell a ton of labor or a ton of materials or a ton of both, we hit margin.
Yeah, so then the beauty is that then your months become more predictable.
Your net margins become way more predictable
Yeah,
in this model.
So then it really makes it easier to be profitable on every job in a true sense.
Yes.
Not just like I'm profitable because I'm doing enough. Like I'm profitable because my hourly rate says I am.
Yes.
It's like you're actually profitable whether you're doing big jobs or little jobs or complex jobs or simple jobs.
Yes.
Huh.
100%. And I guess the real beauty of this is now whenever you bring in revenue, as long as you sold at full price,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Sure.
Whenever we didn't work in membership in there either. I would mark that up again for a membership once I had that.
Right.
Both of them, right? We'd add extra 10%,
Right.
or 15%, whatever our discount was.
Yeah. Yeah. So that when your members are actually members, they're not actually getting like to them they're getting a 15%
What we went
discount.
over, that would be member price.
Yeah. Sure. That's your member price. That's
Your
quote, unquote,
non-members
your
would pay
lower
an
price.
extra 10,
Yes.
15%, whatever
Yeah.
their discount is.
Yep.
So the beauty of that is now doesn't matter where my revenue came from. I know that I made margin on that revenue, right? In the old model, if my revenue came in from materials, I didn't make gross margin on those,
Yeah.
right? I'm
Yeah.
accounting for all of that in labor. So we had to track the two separately.
Mm.
And that's why you see like all these weird commission structures of like, you get 30% after materials are done. Like
Sure.
after we take total job cost, we subtract out materials, and then you get a 30% commission on
Yeah.
it. Well, the reason is they can't give you 30% margin on materials because they're not making any money on the materials.
Yeah, sure. So
right?
then they'll lose their. Yeah. Sure.
So now we can say, okay, we can base our commission structures off of revenue. We can say, okay, you bring in
It's
this
so
much
simple.
revenue this week, and I'll start giving you a commission on after that. And the idea is, we know that labor rates need to be under a certain percentage, right?
Yep, on your P&L.
Yeah. So if we run our business for a couple months and we go look and we're hitting 55% gross, and our labor percentage is typically 20%, our material percentage is typically 25, whatever. Does that add up? That's 45. Yeah. Give you 55 left over, which is what ours was at Prospector. You can say, okay, I need to keep labor under 20% to hit 55%. Well, so if somebody produces, what does it cost me, right? What is their wage is 20% of what number? So how much I
Okay.
pay them
Yep.
for a week's worth of work, what
Yep,
goes
okay.
on their check and their taxes and all their benefits,
For like a 40 or 50-hour week?
40-hour work week.
Okay.
How much revenue do they have to produce for that to be 20%?
Of
Right.
of the total money that they brought in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anything over that number, start paying them 10% commission on. Say, hey, your commission starts at, for us, it was like, I think it was supposed to be like 12 grand. And so we said 10 grand because our overhead was so low.
Yeah.
We had 24% overhead. So we had room in there.
Sure.
We said, okay, anything over 10 grand, you get paid a 10% commission on. It hit a minimum for our guys to need to hit in order to, like, it gave them accountability,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Very objective accountability.
And then it
too.
gave also, the sky's the limit on how much money you can make here.
Mm.
It's all dependent on your skill set out in the field. The better you get, the more you bill, the more money you make.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And what that'll do is that will actually drive more efficiency in your business. You'll be able to lower prices even more and increase conversion rates, and everybody will make more money, and the customer will actually get it for cheaper and have a really good service. So you just create this snowball of efficiency, which does every single person in your business good. You, the customer, and your employees. It's a magical thing. It's a really, 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 really good pricing structure. And I think it's going to be extremely important going into 2025, thinking about the economy that we're in.
Sure.
The businesses start thinking in that manner.
Yeah, because like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of want to be the cheapest you can possibly be, but still hold down your margins.
Oh yeah.
Because again,
and still provide a really high quality service to your customers.
Like, you don't want to sacrifice anything of your your bad butt service, not cussing.
Yeah.
You still want to show up looking incredibly professional, answering your phones, have all the things that make you super awesome.
Yep.
And yet still be as inexpensive as possible while still maintaining your margin.
That's how you own the market right there.
Because that's how somebody goes.
Because you're badass at everything.
Yeah. And then everybody goes like, oh my gosh, I hired this company and I thought they were going to like blow my mind with their prices. And they're actually super reasonable.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't like cheap, but like for what they gave me, I was very satisfied.
Yeah. If I called the other company in town that offers just as good of a service, it would have been this much more.
Yeah. And realistically, if you're not doing margin pricing and you're doing the first realm, you're going to be that second company who's doing everything right, like how we talk about. But since your pricing structure, you're just not thinking about it in this other way, you're going to be the more expensive guy who's doing the exact same thing as the cheaper guy.
Yep.
And that's not going to work in an economy where people are paying attention to their dollars.
Yep. Okay. We got a few more minutes left. So extra tip, if you switch to that kind of pricing, take your expenses for the year and figure out what, like all of your expenses. Go look at your past 12-month P&L and say, add it up. Say, this is what it cost me to run my business. Basically, top line revenue minus profit, bottom line revenue. That's what it costs you to run your business for a year. Divide that by 12. That's what it costs you per month.
Yeah.
Now, whenever you hit that number for the month, start calling all your unsold estimates and offering them a 15% discount if they book before the end of the month. Those jobs, when you book those jobs, you've already gone out to the house. You've already provided them with an estimate. You already know what parts you need to buy. The technician already knows the work that needs to be done. You've already covered all of your costs. You are 80% profitable on that work.
Dude. Yeah.
So you give them a 50% or a 15% discount, which is enough to kick a lot of the people over the edge. You're still hitting 65% net margins on those jobs.
And it's in those situations, because if they weren't members, you could still sell them a membership, right?
Yeah.
And so then they would get a membership discount and the promotional discount.
Yes.
And so then they're looking down the barrel of a 30%, potentially 30% discount.
Yeah. And you still hit massive net margins.
Dude, that's wild. So I was just thinking about that in the terms of the power washing business, where like the time on site I'm predicting, right? I don't know, but the time on site is mostly going to be taken up with walking around the house, getting pictures of problem areas that I need to avoid, past damage that I didn't cause, to provide proper expectations to the customer. But I can have all that done in my software. And when they say, hey, not this time, but we go back and call back, all I have to do is show up, get them to approve the work. And man, I know exactly what I need to do because I can look at what I already did.
Yeah.
And then I just show up and I go tape up the things that are problem areas.
And you're
I just
super efficient.
Finish that job in like 30 minutes.
Super efficient.
And then even the money that we collect at that 30% discount,
your net margins on that are still 65%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because we already covered all the normal stuff.
You do a few of those. That's how you start driving your margins up super high.
Oh, man. That's
super
so cool.
high.
And the chances of you selling that membership is probably higher because they're going, wait, so if I buy your membership and I do this thing this month, 30%, that's almost 50%. That's almost half off. And then suddenly you're like, sure, weird math guy. And then, so I bet you, did you notice in Prospector if you saw increased membership sales in the second half of the month when you enacted that?
I don't know. I don't know that we ever pitched that scenario to our CSRs. Like, that's something that you would have to go back to your CSRs and show them that correlation.
Yeah.
Hey, look, when you're calling these back,
Mm-hmm.
if they're not a member yet, you can sell them a membership and they'll get an additional
Yeah.
% off.
Yeah. So it's like, that's a scream. Like, if any company called me and said, hey, 30% off on that quote that I gave you,
Yeah.
I'd be like,
And it was something that you wanted to do, but you were planning on doing,
Yep.
but you just weren't quite ready to spend the money. You'd be like, ah, crap, I better get it done.
yeah. And they gave me the, man, it could be like, you have 4 days.
Yeah.
We have to get this scheduled in 4 days. Can
Yeah.
you make this happen?
Yeah.
Like, if you're thinking like a big job, like let's see, I had a big like air thing or heating thing that had to be done.
Yep.
And I was like, crap, I got 4 days. Like, let's make it happen. Like, I'll take off a couple hours of work because
Yep.
I'm saving the time I'm saving, or the money I'm saving on this job with this discount is worth me
Yep.
making time for this job.
Correct.
Yeah, it does a ton of cool stuff.
Huge. Massive.
Man.
Okay, now, since you're going to be doing that, it's really important that your guys go out in the field and they're giving these estimates to the customers, right?
Yeah.
Because if there's no estimates to call back on,
You ain't got nothing.
you got nothing.
Yeah.
That's why it's super important for your guys to go out in the field and help the customer by finding everything that's wrong with their home
that's a good point.
and giving them an estimate, like a bundled up,
Like the
bigger
big,
estimate.
the big dog estimate.
Yeah.
So they have it. If nothing else, they have it.
They have it. They know what it costs.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the month, they get even if they don't buy it, at the end of the month, they at least get a call and they're like, hey, I see we left you with this estimate. We're running for the next 4 days a 15% off promotion. If you buy our membership, you get another 10% off. That gives you 25% off this total, bringing your total bill down to this. Is that something you want to take advantage of? I just don't want you to miss out on it.
Yeah.
My boss is going crazy. He doesn't do this very often.
Yeah.
Right? Would you like us to get this done for you?
Mm-hmm.
You'll sell a ton of that work,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to have it there to sell it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's such a good point, because it's like if I just go out and all I do is bid house wash and I don't tack on roof, driveway, whatever.
Yeah.
Then I don't give that option.
Yeah.
Just because who knows why I don't want to take the time. I don't think they're going to buy it, whatever stupid reason.
Yep.
Then there's nothing to then actually hit make that actually desirable.
Right.
Because then it's like, oh yeah, so I get a 25-30% discount on my $600 house wash. That's not as cool as getting that discount on my $3,000 full home cleaning thing.
Correct.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Super cool.
Man, thanks, dude.
Cool. Thanks for listening, guys. You should grab our free playbook. It's free. A lot of this information is in there. Hourly rate calculator is in there. wealthyplumber.com/playbook if you want to grab it. Or if you're watching on YouTube, which is awesome if you are. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Links in the description. See you guys on the next one.
Peace.
Peace.